Kevin Nash. You could say Kevin Nash is one of the featured stars of this channel. Oh, I've had tremendous content on Big Daddy Nash. And I've documented him in a comical sense, a historic sense, a sense of how he did change wrestling forever. You can't argue that. I documented how he buried people in WWF, WCW. I don't think I really mentioned certain TNA things. Now, of course, Nash always denies, because when does a shyster ever admit to their duties or actions? But one of the great burials that I think a lot of people forget about is in 1998, WCW was building up Bill Goldberg. Now, Goldberg had made his debut in 97 versus Hugh Morris. He had a horrible feud with Steve McMichael. Good Lord. You have someone who's green versus someone who can't do anything. Brilliant booking. But in 98, Goldberg, he catches fire. When you get to the spring, he's over huge. They have him beat Raven for the U.S. title on a Nitro Classic match. I got that on VHS still. Hit the like button. Share this video. Subscribe to this channel. Click the join button under the video to get a channel membership that supports the channel. And while they're building up Goldberg, WCW is trying to build up other talents. Now, Eric Bischoff and WCW always got heavy criticism that they only relied on old WWF stars, which is for the most part true. But they did in 98, they did try and, elevate Jericho a little bit. Obviously, Goldberg got a massive push. Conan was getting a huge push, which also got destroyed, but that's much later on. And a few others. And one person that gets forgotten, someone who was getting a push, who was rebranded, who was really getting over slowly was getting over and over, was a wrestler named Wrath. Now, Wrath was also known later on as Brian Clark, and he was also known as a former WWF guy named Atom Bomb. Now, in the WWF, in that 94, 90, 93, 94, 95, Atom Bomb was like a mid-card, lower card character. This is the goofy WWF era of Doink, and soon it will be, this person's a plumber and this person's a hockey player. That nonsense. So Brian Clark gets the gimmick Atom Bomb, and he gets, I think, the Atom Bomb tattooed on his arm. That's great. That's like when Earthquake went to WCW and became the Shark, and he gets a shark tattoo. Lord, where's my drink? Anyway, so Atom Bomb's in the WWF. He's making the towns. And Kevin Nash, when he arrives in the company, he gets the gimmick of Diesel, and then he used the jackknife powerbomb, and Atom Bomb had the Atom Bomb, which basically powerbomb, whatever the case. And Atom Bomb, his finisher basically was the jackknife powerbomb, and Nash used the jackknife powerbomb. So basically, Nash came in and he took Atom Bomb's finisher. Now Nash tells a story that, oh no, I never had a problem with Atom Bomb, and the whole finish, that was Vince's idea. That was the Office, Patterson, Briscoe. But yeah, right. Anyway, so even if it was the Office's idea, it's still, you're taking away something from another wrestler. They're a mid-carder. They're trying to climb the ranks, and you take someone's finisher. That hurts them. Whoever idea it was, whatever the case. So right there was a burial. Now maybe that wasn't Nash stealing his gimmick of his finisher, but okay, then the office was burying him. They already gave him a goofy gimmick. Wasn't he wearing goggles? So anyway, fast forward. You get to WCW. Nash is there in 96, 97. When you get to 97, Adam Bomb, he's now working for Turner. He's Wrath, and he's with Mortis and what was James Mitchell name? James Vandenberg or something? And they're doing their like dark, mysterious gimmick. Canyon is Mortis. I always like Canyon as Mortis compared to just Canyon, but whatever. Anyway, so in '98, they break him away from that, and Adam Bomb, Brian Clark, is now Wrath. And Wrath, I thought was a tremendous character. His gear looked cool. He looked like a grown man. He looked like he can really beat your brains out. He had great size. He had the presentation, and his finisher, I believe, was called the Meltdown. And they started pushing him in the summer of '98 into the fall of '98, and he was on his own winning streak. They had Goldberg with a winning streak, obviously, and Wrath was building up his winning streak. And watching that, I remember thinking, they're slowly building Wrath, and he's slowly getting a better crowd reaction week after week after week. And I thought that, you know, in August, September of '98, if they just kept having him just beat everybody, he's beating all the jobbers, beating all the curtain jerkers, all the lower mid carders, slowly build him. I thought that maybe by spring of '99, maybe Great American Bash of '99, Wrath would be so over they can put him in a main event with Goldberg because he was getting over and it would have worked. And he had what it took. But Kevin Nash, people talk about Triple H's reign of terror, Jeff Jarrett's reign of terror. How about Nash's? Kevin Nash is the second most over babyface in the company, and they're starting to build towards Starrcade '98. And oh, there's another burial coming too. But Nash is already over huge. Nash, the most over Kevin Nash has ever been, is in the summer of 1998 when he turned face and he created his own NWO, the Wolfpack. They got the music, they had the red shirts, they put him, Savage, Conan, Luger, Sting. When Sting turned on Hogan, ripped off the black and white shirt and revealed the red NWO shirt, that is one of the loudest, if not the loudest moments in the history of wrestling. That might be the loudest crowd reaction in the history of wrestling. When Sting ripped off the shirt, he what did he do? He clotheslined Hogan, then he slammed the Giant. That was incredible. Oh my God. Nitro in '98. Like the first 6 months, say 6 months, 7 months, Nitro in '98 had some of the greatest endings. Nitro 96, 97, '98, it had some of the greatest endings in wrestling TV history. And that was one of them. So Nash is over huge. Literally, they could not push him any harder besides making him beat Goldberg for the belt, which would happen later, which I've already discussed that on the channel. Good Lord. So when they're building up the Starrcade, for some reason, Nash faces Wrath. Okay, when this happened, I remember thinking, why would they book Wrath versus Nash? Nash does not need the win, and Wrath, you're slowly building him up. You know he's not going to beat Kevin Nash. And guess what? Let's say they did make the decision. Let's have Wrath beat Nash. Why would you do that? Wrath is not ready to beat someone of that caliber. And then if he beats Nash, you're building Nash to Starrcade. You're building Nash as a top guy. So you either way you do, you're killing one of them. Why would they book that? Now, it's been said from my knowledge that Kevin Nash, who had a lot of influence, He did his usual insecure burial of this guy's getting over, so let me get the win on him and let me let me put the kill on that. Let me cut that down. Classic click Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Kevin Nash insecurity. Now, one thing I will say, of all the click members in their classic politicking and burials, Scott Hall was the one, he didn't care about losing. Hall would lose to Jericho. Hall would lose to 1, 2, 3 Kid. Hall would lose to pretty much anybody. Now, were there times where Scott Hall was an a-hole and he buried someone and he had to get his? Yes. But of all the click members, if you had to say who was the least selfish, it's by far Razor Ramon. Rest his soul. And after Nash pins Wrath, what did they do with Wrath after that? He went right back to being just another guy, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And he got lost in the mix, and they never pushed him again, ever again. Nash beating him completely destroyed his momentum. It makes no sense to this day. And Wrath was somebody, he could have been a top star in WCW. He could have been one of the few people that they truly made a star of that wasn't already a star, because he was not a star as Atom Bomb. And they could have made him, and that could have been another great Goldberg opponent in 6 months had they kept going down the track they were going. But that's what happens in this business. Wrath ain't the last one. He ain't the first one. He won't be the last one. He's wasted potential. You know, later on when Russo was in, they put him in some stupid gimmick called Chronic. Oh, God. Then he goes back to WWF and basically gets buried again by Undertaker and Kane during the invasion. But that's just how this wrestling thing is. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to this channel. If you want to support the channel, you can donate to the Cash App. If you have a video request, you can donate to the Cash App. I don't do free videos, thanks to all the people asking in the comments. It's $XDN online. The link is in the description. The link should be in the first pinned comment in the comment section, and that is it.